Hey guys, I'm JanetOnOccasion, and today we are having a look at Greasus and Skrag's unique campaign mechanics, which is really fun because they are very different characters. So I've been very intrigued to figure out what's going to make them different on the campaign map. So let's get to it. Playing as Greasus and Skrag, get big or go home. Which is funny because usually we go big or go home, but it's not because they're big and they want to get big, and it's a pun. Anyway, the ogres have arrived in Total War Warhammer 3 and they won't be going anywhere. Too rich to walk, too mad to die, and too powerful to ignore. Both our ogre legendary lords are powerhouses, but very different people. Greasus is the trade lord, over-tyrant of his people, and a master of diplomacy and combat both. Skrag is a cult leader of deranged gorges. Sounds good. A prophet of the Great Maw, and twice as deadly as either. But how do they play? What do they do, and where do they start? Let's get into it. In our previous Legendary Lord Mechanics blog, we only had one lord to contend with. For the Ogre Kingdoms, Kislev and Cathay, there are two, but we'll deal with them in turn. As we've stated in the past, game in development, numbers non-final, work in progress, etc, etc. Let's start with Greasus Goldtooth. So here he is, and also it's nice to see in the UI, there's the faction selection, and then the lords lined up. Because we have seen this screen and we kind of know that that would be the deal, but there's only ever been one lord in this screenshot, so we've never seen more than one lined up there. So it's nice just to see that we haven't imagined it, and that is the case. So Goldtooth faction effects. Diplomatic relations plus 20 with Ogre Kingdoms, which is pretty good. It's not huge. That could easily go from like trespassing or, allying with one of their enemies, something like that. Plus 20 will go pretty quickly, but it means that you got kind of no harm of, sort of no risk of early wars being declared on you by Ogre Kingdoms factions, which makes sense. He's the ogre, he's the over tyrant, so it makes sense. Also, income from trade plus 25%, which could be very substantial. That could be very substantial because you can earn quite a lot of money from trade if that's the game that you're playing. And it seems that ogres are quite good at trade, so we'll have to see how that goes. And unit mass plus 25%, which is really unique, actually. That is super unique, because now there is more transparency around unit mass stats. That's actually going to be on the info card now. You'll be able to actually find that, which is really good. That's really useful, because it was always very... it just was very transparent in the past, so it's good to see that. But it does play into a bunch of different calculations when you're charging. So it also stops you getting knocked over yourself, but in the case of the ogres, it'll probably help them more out offensively. So it'll send enemies flying more, and it actually does more damage too. So yeah, that could be really fun. I think that's going to be really interesting, because they've got pretty high mass anyway, I'd imagine. Not that I've actually seen those stats yet for them, but yeah, very cool. I like it. So, and you thought ogres were nothing but warmongers. The key to ogre play, particularly as Greasus, is to make the right friends at the right times, so you can focus your attention elsewhere. Naturally, the end goal of Ogre Kingdom's diplomacy is to confederate all under the over-tyrant and form an everlasting empire. The bonuses to help trade when dealing with the Cathayan factions on your borders and keeping that massive nation happy, either for all time or until you're ready. I do like there's always the threat of violence from the ogres. Like, yeah, they've got, Greasus got a thing going with Cathay, but it doesn't mean that's necessarily going to last, and it doesn't necessarily mean that even he wants it to last. It's just beneficial in the meantime. So, pretty cool. Because, yeah, they're not against eating anybody. Even a good family friend, even family, even your dad. You could eat your dad. That's normal for Greasus. So, worth re-noting here, as it is most relevant for Greasus and other Eastern Ogre tribes, that they are neutral in world politics. They're as happy to work with and for demon factions as anyone else, as long as the grub's good. I did say, didn't I? Didn't I say? While demons do not trade, no concept of money will do that to you. They can still make pacts of various kinds. So I like that they actually are willing to work with the demons as well. I kind of thought maybe the demons would just be aggro towards everybody, just generally. But the fact that they can even sort of elect the help of the Ogre Kingdoms is really cool, because it means the Ogre Kingdoms, they start basically in the middle of the Warhammer 3 map, as far as we can tell, so far anyway. So to be like smack dab in the middle, and absolutely anyone can egg them on to attack their enemies or work with them or whatever, I think that's really cool. I think it'd be really interesting to see how they affect other campaigns. I think they're a really cool faction for that. So I like it. I like it. It's good having like a morally blank force in the middle of the map. So unit mass is a unit stat that isn't often exposed in tooltips. See? Told you. But it's very valuable and will be more visible in Warhammer 3. And, yep. It is part of the calculations for the results on unit collisions due to charges. See? And most directly determines whether a unit is knocked down, knocked back, down, or sent flying. A higher unit mass, especially for a faction with such bias towards charging as ogres, is going to disrupt enemy formations more effectively and cause more damage. This is, yeah. I like being proven right, you know. Immediately. Far from a simple joke about the most rotund face in the Warhammer world, this buff is likely the deadliest they could receive. So this will be really fun to see, I think. So very aggressive faction that's also more diplomatic than others, which is an interesting mix, I must say. You know, diplomacy or else. I like it. So Greasus Goldtooth legendary lord effects. So these are obviously going to be the things that just affect his army. But, you know, still good. Income from raiding, plus 50%. Income from sacking and looting settlements, plus 50%. That's also really good. And income, minus 50% for Iron Guts units. Iron Guts are the slightly elite ones, right? The Bulls are the low tier, and then the Iron Guts are the tier above. Right? Am I remembering that correctly? We just went over the roster yesterday, but I'm bad at remembering names of things, okay? I can't help it. So, Greasus continues his focus on greed and wealth, especially from the destruction of his enemies. While he is a genius statesman, for an ogre, when it comes to diplomatic relations and trade, he's equally adept at taking what he wants, when he wants it. Worth remembering how ogre settlements work for both of these first two buffs. Ogre camps are constantly raiding the region they are in. If it's enemy territory, this is done with a sizable garrisoning army and can translate into a significant income with the right targets. So while, yeah, that's good, it's not his army, though. If, you know, if it's a camp, it's not his army, so that's not going to get benefit from raiding, surely. Unless it is somehow, if you build a camp, that camp is bestowed with the traits of the ogre that created it. But that didn't seem to be described with that, but maybe that's the case, but fine. We'll see how that plays out, I guess. So this is done with sizable garrisoning army and can translate into significant income with the right targets. In addition, with their weak primary settlements, repeatedly sacking or razing cities rather than taking them, particularly province capitals, is even more enticing prospect. Okay, so it gives buffs. It's the buffs that are useful, right? So that's the idea. So a 50% increase is nothing to sniff at and could easily take sack rewards into the 5 figures. Wow, that's impressive. So yeah, okay, so that's the idea. So Greasus builds a camp, builds a bunch of buildings there that'll give nearby buffs to looting and raiding and stuff, and add the 50% bonus from him on top of all of that, and you're going to end up with a huge amount of money. So that makes more sense. So cool. Anyway, Iron Guts, being the fattest and burliest ogres around, as well as an excellent tier 3 unit, are Greasus' signature troops. Combine the bonuses by stocking your camps with Iron Guts to have them raiding. Very cool. Very cool indeed. Except again, it seems to suggest that putting them in the camp will make them cheaper. You know? But that seems strange to me. Yeah, I feel like this blog doesn't know the game's mechanics somehow. It seems to have a slight... It seems to have made a leap, which I'm not seeing how that'll actually translate. But that's fine, you know, whatever the case. Iron Guts will still be useful in a camp, and I guess they can raid, so yay. Anyway, Greasus Goldtooth skill tree. Greasus has a great skill tree with some extra options on top of the Tyrant set. His position at the very top of Ogre Society gives additional boons in all the right places. 4 sequential skills, all available from the start and named for Greasus's... Again, I'm yawning. I was doing this in the last episode as well. Anyway, all available from the start and named for Greasus's many legendary titles, gives significant bonuses. Tribe Stealer, which is which gives large buffs to Ogre Kingdoms relations and melee attack and weapon strength while fighting them. So that I really like. I love this sort of two sides of the coin attitude that Greasus has between sort of statesman and bully, because they're sort of the same thing when regarding ogres. It's an interesting one. So the buffs to relations because he can beat the crap out of them, and of course the other buffs are proof that he can beat the crap out of them. So I think it's great. I think it's really fun. So Goldtooth, big buff to leadership and armor for Greasus' army. Now that's a big deal because armor is not something that the ogres have in huge abundance. Generally, you know, just sort of weak sort of crossbows, things like that, will do a lot of damage to them. They're very big targets, don't have very high armor. So the idea of him being able to negate some of that by giving his troops better armor than normal is really good, because generally the same tools are going to be used against them. You know, you want to kill ogres, use halberds. They have armor piercing anyway, but yeah, will help negate some of the damage from the you know, scary crossbowmen and such. So that's really cool. Drake Crush, bonus damage versus large, good for crushing drakes. Over Tyrant, additional casualty replenishment, recruit rank, and local recruit capacity for Greasus' army. That's pretty good stuff. That's rather nice there. These join his bespoke big names: Shockingly Obese, Gatecrasher, Trade Lord, and Hordemaster, in making Greasus a truly unique character on and off the battlefield. A final important note is 3 further skills, all involved with camps. The final one, known fittingly as the best campin', increasing your camp limit by 1. This gives Greasus unique access to more raiding posts, more places to refuel his army, and more meat. So that is a really big deal, because it seems that the amount of camps you can have is going to be severely limited. So the idea of getting 1 as a result of a skill point, that's a really cheap way to get it, you know, without having to go through a huge amount of sort of technology before you can start unlocking more. So yeah, I think it's been very very powerful character for sure. You know, his presence will definitely be felt, which is cool. And his start position. Greasus starts, understandably, at the Great Hall of Greasus along the Ivory Road. Be strange if he didn't. This is central on the map and borders various other Ogre Kingdoms factions. Also in the region is an at-war Ogre Kingdoms faction, Crossed Clubs, with settlements to the north and south. The final settlement in the province is seemingly abandoned, but closer inspection will reveal a Skaven hideout. Sounds about right. I love Skaven in Warhammer, just because they are the perfect like villain to put anywhere. If you're just like, no, we need something to fight here, Skaven. It makes sense everywhere. There is never a point where you go, that'd be a bit weird. No, put them anywhere, because they can be anywhere. They're rats, for God's sake. So they're just the best thing to just like fill in like settlements with something interesting to deal with. So they're really good for that. It would be the same if you're just trying to tell a story in Warhammer. You can do the same with Beastmen, but obviously Beastmen don't have settlements. Greenskins are good for it too, but like Skaven, just put them literally anywhere. And like, oh, is it scary ruins? Oh, it's a Skaven! You know, it's great. So taking out the first army of the Crossed Clubs and then conquering their 2 settlements and the province is your normal start. From there you will have quite a lot of options, with the first decision being how friendly or otherwise you wish to be with your ogre neighbours. You've got big bonuses to potential alliances and confederations down the road, but crushing them beneath your heel is just as effective. Whichever route you pick will leave you with several immediate options for expansion. Also, we should look at his army. So it looks like he's got a couple of Iron Guts to begin with, I think. Possibly, judging from the picture. They could just be bulls though. Also a unit of Noblars and a unit of Saber Tusks, which is pretty cool. I'm kind of surprised by the Saber Tusks actually. They're a very useful unit to have, but I'm kind of surprised to see them just for the fact that you'd kind of expect them to be along with a hunter, unless there's a hunter that he starts with as well, because obviously heroes don't start embedded in an army in the campaign, so perhaps he starts with a hunter in his faction as well, rather than like a fire belly or something. So that could be interesting. Although I can imagine he'd probably start with a fire belly. More likely start with a fire belly than a hunter, because you'd want him to have spells, right? Might start with a butcher as well. But Saber Tusks just get big bonuses from having hunters in the roster. But anyway, we'll find out, I suppose. So the winding and spindly nature of the province leaves your settlements spread out and somewhat far-flung, but also means lots of borders. Dwarfs, orcs, further Skaven, paths to the Cathay borderlands, and lots of ogre factions surround you. The bigger question is which major power to go after first. Demons, a few provinces to the north, Cathay waiting on the east of the map, or Kislev in the middle west. So Greasus' starting stack consists of himself, 2 units of ogre bulls. It is ogre bulls. Because the picture was higher up, I thought they weren't going to talk about it. But hey, I guess I should trust them more. And 1 unit of Noblars, and a single Sabertusk pack. Not exactly a humongous honour guard, but it's worth noting that Ogre armies can immediately lower their global recruitment duration to 1 turn for basic units, thanks to the offerings to the Great Maw, making it easy to recruit 5 units a turn after the initial engagement. Impressive. It might be worth aiming for a Hunter early on to quickly take advantage of the free Sabertusks. See? Look at me, I'm clever. And now we're on to Skrag the Slaughterer, the freakish giant baby Skrag the Slaughterer. Look at him. He's so weird looking. And like this bit, this thing hanging off him. This looks like a weird boob. Just like an angry boob. Just not a happy boob. Skrag the Slaughterer, giant monster baby. Disciples of the Maw faction effects. Campaign movement range plus 10% for all characters. That's pretty great, actually. That's pretty damn handy. Campaign movement range is always useful in campaign. Any bonus just makes you faster than many of the things that you'll be chasing about, you know? Just immediately. So that's great. Hero capacity plus 1 for butchers. Makes a lot of sense. You know, that's kind of his thing. And hero recruit rank plus 2 for butchers. Although I'm surprised there's not more faction effects relating to Gorges. I mean, there will be stuff, his own effects, but I don't know, I would have thought faction effects. I thought Gorges would just sort of like come to him, but I guess they come to him directly rather than to his faction. Whereas he's still a prophet for the Great Maw, so butchers are still likely to sort of follow him anyway, so I guess it makes sense. So this split represents the 2 definitive halves of Skrag's existence. There's the Wanderer, who will drag his army across half the world to enact revenge, keeping them fed, watered, and ready for battle. Anyone with some playtime in Total War will know just how powerful additional movement range on the campaign map is. Then there's the pure power of the Maw that Skrag evokes, drawing spellcasters of all shapes and sizes to his side. As a refresher, butchers can bring either the Lord of Beasts or Lord of the Great Maw. I forgot about Lord of the Beasts, but yeah, that's a really nice thing. I do like they did that. More with them, and have access to replenish troops, cleanse corruption, steal technology, wound and hinder replenishment actions and effects. They also have a series of ogre-specific skills that improve each of those by another significant margin. Very cool. Very good to hear. Skrag the Slaughterer Legendary Lord effects. Gorgeous stuff. Casualty replenishment rate plus 8% for Gorger units, which is a big deal, actually. That's a pretty big deal, because I want to say they're unbreakable? But maybe just immune to psychology. I've forgotten. Are they unbreakable? I can't remember. But either way, they're going to get real damaged whenever they're in a bind. They're not going to run away and, you know, be fine for the next battle. So they're going to lose a lot of models. So just getting that big replenishment boost is really useful. Also, upkeep minus 50% for Gorger units. So this also helps the relentlessness of it. So not only can he move faster, but he'll be encouraged to, because he'll be able to recover from every battle a lot quicker. So that's really cool. It's just a shame there's only one Gorger unit. There's not like a range of different Gorger units, you know? I think that's a pity, because it will make his army a bit monotonous, I think. But we'll see. We'll see. So not exactly a ton to explain here. Gorges are Skrag's most loyal followers, tempted from the Mountains of Morn by promises of slaughter and victory. They will swarm in packs to help him, and care little for gold as a reward, so long as more tasty treats are promised. Yay! He does also have that summon. It mentioned in the roster reveal for the Ogre Kingdoms. He can summon Gorges as well, which is cool. I mean, obviously they won't benefit from the replenishment rate or the upkeep, you know, because they don't really exist. But very cool that he can do that too. So Skrag the Slaughterer skill tree, as well as the normal sets of caster trees and the entire Lord of the Great Maw. Skrag has access to some unique powers that make him an even better army commander and a deadly melee participant to go along with his powerful spells. They include the Maw Feasts, cost reduction for offers to the Great Maw, Gorger Onslaught, summon a unit of Gorges onto the battlefield. Yeah, there we go, there's that summon. Is that a big name? No, that's one of his skills. Okay, that's one of his unique skills. That's fair enough. Whirling Stump Blades increases melee attack and weapon strength, and Driven by Visions, which gives further campaign movement range increase, which is kind of scary. Very cool. Very cool indeed. So these join his big names, which you can see above, and are significantly powerful for keeping Skrag's army stocked with food or improving his casting abilities. It's worth noting that between his faction effects, big name skills, and hero effects, Skrag can really be sprinting around the map. This is as useful for running down enemy armies as it is going between provinces, and with the ogre's constant need for meat, the quicker they get somewhere, the less they'll consume on the journey, which is very cool indeed. So I'm actually going to bring up this graphic so we can have a closer look at it. Alright, so here we go. The More That Walks being the top one. Unlock requirement, win a battle against an army led by a spellcaster. That's pretty cool. I like that. I like the little things you have to do to unlock these. Wins a magic power reserve +2 per turn for the Lord's army, and meat provided by camps -50% for the Lord's army. Oh no. But hey, more wins and magic power reserves, that's brilliant. I love that a lot. So clearly they're feeding that meat to his cauldron or something. So that's pretty cool. And Gore Harvester is his next one, meat generated, 2 for the Lord's army. Ever Famished. This you get by ending your turn with over 50 meat. That's meat provided by camps +25%, and meat gained from battles +10%. That feels powerful, but it's hard to know, because I don't really know how much meat is a lot of meat in this campaign. And World Swallower. Win 5 battles, which is +20 diplomatic relations with all factions. And campaign movement range +8. But diplomatic relations +20 with all factions. Why is that? I wonder what the reasoning for that is. Is it because they want to keep him happy? Is that it? Is it his renown means that he's something that, you know, an ogre that they're going to want to recruit? That seems unlikely. I think it might just be fear. I think they might just be more willing to do what he asks. Lest he turn up on their doorstep. You know, that's the beauty of having like a morally blank. I don't even say morally grey, it's morally blank. Like morality isn't even a thing. It's not even they're weighing up pros and cons. They're going down the middle, being like, oh yeah, I know this is bad and this is good, but no, I'm going my way. No, they just don't have any concept of morality. It's nonsense to them. It's not a thing. They're just morally blank. Doesn't even come into it. So it's not morally grey. They're morally blank. Just everything you know about morality, they don't. So that's how I see them anyway. So, but yeah, so pretty cool stuff. I like that you get the new tab for quests at the top as well, actually. That's really fun. I like that a lot. It's just a nice touch to have that, because the quests, I often lose them. I lose track of them a lot, which I'm sure a lot of other people too, because having a bunch of quest lines active for various characters, it doesn't really make a big deal of it. You know, there's nowhere on the UI that's like obvious about it. There's just like a little button in the top right corner that you can click to get a log of all of them, but having it actually as part of your, you know, your sort of the gameplay loop of clicking and leveling up, having a big thing saying quests, so you go, oh right, yeah, I'll check in on that. So I think that's really good. Anyway, let's go back to the other stuff. So, Skrag the Slaughterer's start position and his units, which I'm not even going to say out loud, even though it's 2 bulls, a gorger, and a nobler. But I'm not going to say it out loud. No, I'm going to keep that for later when it actually explains it, because I have faith in the blog to do that. Yeah. So, Skrag begins far-flung from just about every other legendary lord in Warhammer 3, with a settlement in the southern Grey Mountains, tucked into the southwest of the map, and beginning a campaign of slaughter against the dwarfs of Carrick Ziflin. Wow. That's really cool. They control 2 settlements in the west of Gristle Valley, and then a further settlement in the northern Grey Mountains. Naturally, they also have a starting target army in one of your borders, which makes sense, because there's always like a gimme army to go and fight on turn 1. It's just how Total War do. So of course, what's truly interesting about the start is to the north of Gristle Valley is Reichland and the Empire. Midland, Marienburg, and many more are all in the vicinity, and at least one will need to die to allow for your expansion. Naturally, they all have juicy contracts on one another to give out, and you could always give up on them and take your army further afield for lands beyond. Kislev and the Chaos Waste's cool. Banging down a few ogre camps in the rich heartlands of human civilization on the way could pay for itself in raiding loot. Assuming you deal with the dwarfs and abandoned settlements, abandoned in the northern Grey Mountains. I wonder what could be there, huh? First, there is only one way to go, north and east, but it's your choice on how you conduct yourself. Beyond Marienburg is the Witch's Wood and Lorelorn Forest, home to the Wood Elves. Then the Sea of Claws, and the passage to Kislev and Chaos Wastes of Norska, the Warriors and the Demons. Very cool. Skrag's starting stack consists of himself, 1 unit of Noblars, 2 units of Ogre Balls, and a unit of Gorges. It's a strong start with Vanguard deployment, high speed, and unbreakable Gorges. They are unbreakable, I was right. Hadn't imagined it. And unbreakable Gorges faring well in early fights against slow, squishy dwarfs and Skaven. I mean, Ogres are going to do so well against, like, early dwarf stacks. Because, like, dwarfs are going to need things like Longbeards and Ironbreakers just to have the melee defense to withstand the ogres ploughing into them, but their armor's not going to help them in any way at all, so yeah, it's going to be rough for him. It's going to be very rough, especially because Gorges have the anti-infantry bonus as well, so they're just kind of tailor-made for killing dwarfs. Also, they have Stalk, right? So you're not even going to necessarily see them coming, so you're not going to get your ranged units pointing in the right direction, so you're going to miss out on a lot of range damage before they've already minced up that front line or flank. So, yeah, pretty bad. Pretty bad news for the poor old dwarfs. Anyway, however, you will need to quickly place a camp and find a good region to raid and pillage so you can grow this army into one capable of completing contracts and facing the Empire or worse. So this is really nice because this is, I mentioned a few like blog article things ago that the sort of Cathay and Ogres were doing a good job of supporting each other in terms of narrative, but the Ogres here are actually doing a really good job of enriching the personalities of the Empire, because the Empire are constantly infighting. To call it an empire is kind of bold. All the different sort of provincial the different provinces, all the different elector counts are always vying for power, and so are all their barons and things. You know, they have a bunch of people who are just sort of having these little border skirmishes with other, you know, feudal lords and things, just trying to get like a little bit of extra land or take over that little mine there or whatever. They're constantly bickering. A lot of politics and things, but it's kind of expected, and so it's only when things get really out of hand that their superiors, you know, step in, and then you got elector counts bickering, and then usually the emperor has to go, guys. So why not make ogres do it instead? You know, why fight your neighbour for their territory if you can just have the ogres run in, eat your enemies, and then you can go, oh, well, I'm here. I could take over the running of that place if you like. You know, if you like that count, I could do it. So yeah. I love it. So yeah, nobility are dicks, and ogres are going to facilitate that really well. So I think that's really fun. I think that's really cool. I think that's going to be really interesting. So the power and grubs, what we're doing it for. Totally. Who takes your fancy, Skrag or Greasus? I mean, they're both hot. I think we can agree. Too magical to die or too rich to walk? Gorges or Iron Guts? The Empire or Cathay? The Empire or the other Empire? It's all on the menu for Total War Warhammer 3. Coming February 17th, 2022. So brilliant. I think this is really cool. I think there's a lot of potential here, and the two legendary lords are going to lead to unbelievably different campaigns by the sounds of it. So I really can't wait to see how this plays out. It's going to be really fun. I went hands-on like yesterday. This is really cool. It's getting me more excited and kind of sad about the delay again. But yeah, it's all promising. It's all promising stuff, and I think what's striking me most about the new lords and campaigns in this game is that they're doing a very good job of world building. It's not. It doesn't feel to me somehow like it's just relying on, here's a character trope, let's put them wherever there's room. It feels like they're being put in a place to support aspects in a more intentional way, in a well more thought out way somehow. It could just be because they have room on the map to be a bit more thoughtful about it. But either way, it feels like they're doing a great job of the world building through all the different characters and their designs and their mechanics, which I really appreciate. I think it's fantastic, you know, because that's the thing. The ogres running around the Empire, when we finally get to play the Empire in Total War Warhammer 3 or the combined map or whatever, they will feel richer for having ogres around as something to contend with, or I guess point towards your enemies, you know, whatever the case. So it just, everything seems to be enriching everything around it. It's good franchising is what it is. It's like the Marvel movies, right? You know, Iron Man's cool, so I'll watch the Avengers. You know, one thing feeds into the other. That's what it is. It's good franchising. But they're doing a good job of it. Everything is there in support of everything else, which I love. I love it. Very cool stuff. So anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this, please do comment, like, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.